Oh, yes.
Welcome back, everyone. Today I've got a review for War for Cybertron Siege number 42. Really getting up there. This is the Deluxe Autobot Impactor. Impactor is one of the two fan vote characters alongside fellow Autobot Mirage. And we will definitely get more into that. He's part of a new wave of Deluxes alongside Mirage and the Decepticon Barricade, who I'll be doing reviews on shortly, for both of those. And you can see here, interestingly, it actually calls out his fan vote status. The fan voted. And then it says in a whole bunch of different languages. So, you know, the people have spoken. They wanted an Impactor. Admittedly, I'm one of them. I voted for this duo. Didn't really feel we needed another Mirage, but I really wanted to see a legit Impactor toy. Closest thing we got was a Rook retool from the Collectors Club, which was, you know, it was okay, but really felt lacking. So this version of Impactor is based directly on his original design from the Marvel Comics. You can really see, based on his head and helmet design, where he takes that inspiration from. He's one of the leaders of the Wreckers. He was a leader right before Springer, so he's, you know, more of a fan favorite character than a, I would say, popular character, you know, worldwide. I imagine people that don't read the comics, either Marvel or IDW, have much of an idea of who Impactor is. But I'm really happy that they finally made one after decades, you know, 30 years now, 30-something years. So you guys know the drill. We're going to take a look at his packaging, the instructions, bust out Impactor in his different modes, get a look at those. I'm going to do a comparison with the Club Impactor, just so you can see how much more accurate this guy is. And then at the end, I'll give my final thoughts. So the packaging, like I said, pretty standard fare with the addition of the fan vote tag there. On the side, you have this really nice artwork of Impactor, just looking like an absolute badass. You know, looks like he's shouting commands to his Wreckers teammates. He's also wielding this gun here, which, I don't know, does the toy come with that? Oh, it does, okay. Thought it might have been a Battlemaster for a second. So on the back, you got the renders of him in his two modes. He turns in this cool tank-like vehicle. Cross cells for different Battlemasters and stuff. And your standard Siege artwork. So, nothing special to see. Just something unexpected for the last 3 decades. Here are the instructions for Impactor. So you got the render up front. And then you open this guy up. Pretty short. Just shows his transformation into his tank mode and how to store his little harpoon weapon. Shows you how to connect his harpoon to his arm to replace one of his hands. Got your cross cells and compatibility. And here, oddly, so here's the weapon loadout, and you might notice it's not in English. It's all in Autobot alphabet, which, I don't know. That's a first. I don't know what happened there. They just decided this is the direction they're going to go from now on. You have to look up the alphabet to know what these things are called or what, but weird choice. I don't know if there's a one-off or they're just going to keep going with it. So yeah, those are the instructions. Here's Impactor in his tank mode. And this seems to be more inspired by the IDW version than the Marvel Comics one. Just because in the Marvel Comics, he supposedly had like a drill vehicle or drill tank alt mode. Whereas in IDW, it was just more of a standard tank. So that's the direction they went with. Surprisingly, amongst tank toys, they tend to lack articulation, be very blocky, especially at a smaller scale. But his whole turret section does rotate full 360 degrees, and has kind of like some soft stopping points at the straight and backward position. And then the cannon can actually swivel up and down because it's just being held on by its two 5mm ports there. So that is very cool. He's got 4 rollers here. Rolls pretty well, actually. See his harpoons being stored on top of this little extra cannon here on the top. You can see his head a little bit, but it's not too terrible. And the battle damage, I think, is pretty smartly applied. It's around the bottom, you know, near the treads, which is where you'd expect him to get the most roughed up driving around. And it doesn't look too bad, it just looks like paint being scraped off. So, one of the better uses. Here, you can see his Autobot symbol, and it's actually done up in the same purple as the rest of his body, so it's really just a silver outline. Which is different for Autobots. Typically you don't see a purple Autobot insignia unless they're supposed to be shattered glass, so that's different. I like it. Here's the Collectors Club version of Impactor from a few years ago. And you can see these vehicle modes are nothing alike. You know, they're not even the same type of vehicle. This is just more of an armored transport type thing. And, you know, this was really great to get, the club exclusive, back, you know, during a time when there was no G1 Impactor toy. You know, unless you count the Fall of Cybertron one, but I don't really. It looks way too different for me to count it. But also there wasn't really any hope in sight for Hasbro Takara to make their own. So this was great for, you know, its time. And honestly, I do feel that, you know, this armored carrier type alt mode is pretty fitting for the character. Big heavy hitter like him. Plus, I think in IDW he actually assumed something like this toward the end, right before he died. My biggest gripe with the old club one is that they try to do this cool thing where he had a whole bunch of weapons just to show his, you know, very warlike tendencies. But in execution, not so great. You can see them all just kind of slapped on there very haphazardly because they don't really have anywhere to go in this mode. And even in robot mode, his weapon storage is kind of dubious at best. But yeah, just two very different takes on the same character with two very different alt modes. Overall, you know, I still think I'm gonna give it to this one just because it's much cleaner. The weapons actually have somewhere to go that don't look silly. But this toy is still a lot of fun. Alright, time to do the transformation. First thing, if you haven't already, go ahead and remove his little harpoon from the top. Set that aside. On the back here, you're gonna lift these bits kind of up and away. See, they're tabbed in right there. So you do that, you take these rear treads and you rotate them 180, like so. Separate these, they're going to be the legs. You are going to unfold the feet and then bring them into a more natural position, like so. Like that. And you're going to straighten his waist out so it clicks into place, like that. Now that you have something akin to a, you know, Macross toy, it's actually really cool. Let's just leave them like this. All right, video's over. Good job. I like this toy. No? All right, fine. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're going to separate these arms, and they kind of fold out on this hinge here. So you just gotta pull them out so they're nice and straight. Same thing here. Remove this from his arm, set it aside. Fold the chest down until it clicks into place. You gotta make sure the shoulder panels are just the right position. All right, these forearms, you're gonna spin 180, like so. Gonna flip his fists out. Flip this over, and there's a little door here on his back. You just put it up, pull the head out, which may give you a hard time. I'll use this, cheat a little bit. There you go. Be careful if you have to pry the head out because it is, the whole helmet's painted. Go ahead, spin the head all the way around, face forward, and yeah. Here we have Impactor's robot mode. And of course, you can give him his tank cannon as a gun. So let's do that. And now, as far as the harpoon, can be, you know, left on here if you want to give him, like, maintain the whole two-hand look. Could have him hold it like a regular weapon, maybe pretend it's a gun or something. But the real point of it is to flip either of his hands around. They both have these little ports in them, but this is the default one because it's the one he typically replaces with weapons. And you get that just pure, good old Impactor pirate look. And look at this thing. Is this not a dream come true for any long-time G1 or Marvel fan? I mean, I love it. He just looks so imposing, so cool. He's got this real serious look on his face, which actually doesn't match the render. The render had him with an open mouth, so looks like they changed the design at one point. I love like the little wide, flat shoulder cannon he's got there. Very nice touch. I like that, you know, you have the option of giving him two hands or giving him his little harpoon hand there. Cannon makes for a really good gun. He's obviously got all the full amount of articulation you would expect from Siege. He does have waist swivel, though it kind of swivels just under his chest there. It's weird. Everything else is the same. His outward motion on his hips is actually kind of ratcheted, so that's a little different for Deluxe. Here, regular bend at the knee, and then of course he's got ankle tilt, though it does make his legs kind of pop apart a little bit when you mess with it. Not too bad, not overly loose. And his head is actually on a ball joint, but it's very tight, so it acts as more of a swivel. You don't really get a lot of up and down play out of it. But it works for me. I know the biggest complaint I've heard about this toy, and it's valid, is the very hollow legs. Now normally I can forgive something like this if it was necessary for the transformation, right? Something had to go in there, fold away, but in this case it's not. I mean, his transformation for his legs literally just peg him together like that. So this was purely a cost-cutting maneuver. And I understand budgeting is a thing. The company's got to, you know, reach a certain bottom line, but really, that's it. Like, just leave this all wide open like that, completely hollow. It just screams cheap to me. Luckily, because it is on his inner legs, it's not the most noticeable thing in the world. And he's also got some hollowness in his lower back too, which is also rather egregious. I imagine if the hollowness bothers you a lot, I'm sure third-party companies or like Shapeways vendors will come up with little plugins that you can stick in there. And hopefully they're color match really well if you just really want him to look a lot better. And I understand that you shouldn't have to do that. You know, the toy should be adequate as is. But this is the area we live in, for better or for worse. I mean, there's some great things about modern generations toys. There's some not so great things about them. But overall, I don't think it detracts from the toy very much. Especially if you just expect that there's going to be hollow bits, because there always are. Alright, and for another comparison, here is yet again the club exclusive Impactor in his robot mode. And, you know, this is where the resemblance really falls apart with the character. Like, God bless them, they tried. He does have this really nicely done, nicely painted head sculpt, which evokes his IDW incarnation. And, you know, they didn't cheap out with the weapons. Definitely gave him a lot. They had this neat little effect where they left this fist unpainted, so you can pretend it's just not there, and you can attach any of his weapons, really. It could be, you know, this spark extractor thing, any of his little swords, blaster, whatever you want. And then they attach this here to his shoulder to kind of emulate this cannon here. So, again, it was the best we had for a time. And it does have the added bonus of being a combiner limb, specifically for Wreckage, who is just a really, really cool combiner. So, you know, I'll probably treat him the way I treat, like, the Combiner Wars Autobot cars, where I really only display them in their combine mode. So, like, they exist for that purpose, and then when you need the individual bot looking good, you got him here. Seeing them together now makes me realize just how lacking this was as an accurate Impactor toy. But again, no shade against the club. They worked with what they had at the time. Now, for anyone that doesn't fully know about it, or maybe doesn't know about this at all, there's going to be another one of this toy released here very shortly as an Amazon exclusive. It's going to be a retool and minor redeco of this toy with a more IDW inspired head, so it'll look more akin to that. It's also going to have some, red kneecaps and some other little tampo details. And then the other interesting thing about him is that he's going to be a Decepticon. So instead of an Autobot symbol here, it's going to be a Decepticon one, which kind of just falls in line with the whole fan vote. It's supposed to be one Autobot, one Decepticon. Mirage was the Autobot. Impactor was listed as a Decepticon under the explanation that, before he was leader of the Wreckers, he could have been a con at some point, which, given his penchant for bloodthirst and violence, I could see that, see him being a defected Decepticon. So that's coming around the pike, and you can bet I'll be reviewing it. I have it on pre-order. It's going to come with a transparent blue Mirage to mimic his whole hologram stealth ability thing. That's going to have a toy-accurate head, which is cool. And that's also going to come with the Power Dasher Aragon. So the F1, is that what we call it? F1 Power Dasher or something like that. So definitely look forward to those. But that's really all I have to say on this figure. It doesn't need that many words. Pick it up. It's excellent. It's hitting Amazon right now. Should be hitting stores soon. But of course, that's just my opinion. I could be very heavily biased by my love for the character. So let me know what you think. Is he worth it? Do the hollow bits ruin the toy for you? Do you overlook them? Is there anything you would have liked to see differently with this toy? Definitely love to hear your thoughts on it down below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to toss it a like. Let YouTube know that you do like this content and you want to see more of it. And if you do want to see more of it, make sure to hit the subscribe button as well as the notification bell so you always get a heads up whenever I post something new. I thank you for joining me for this look at a very long-awaited figure. And with all that said, I will see you next time.